Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending upon where you live around the world. Well, the year has started off reasonably well, 2026 that being, and I'd been away on holiday, hadn't made any videos or, of course, worked in the workshop because I was away, and I came home to consider what I was going to focus on for the first part of the year. One of those things was to get my workshop a little bit further along towards being finished, if there is ever such a thing in a workshop. But as part of that, I was about to make some narrow cuts with my track saw system and make some drawers up so that I could finish some of those projects that I'd had left at the end of the year. So this video, while it is via SketchUp, is really part of the workshop series or the Dave's Diary series, where I make some commentary on what I'm up to out in the workshop or outside doing various things. One of the benefits of doing those Dave's Diary videos is not for the watcher, but for me. I get to try and outline what I'm doing. I will hear myself making some grandiose comment or suggestion. I then go inside, having heard my own voice, and think, well, that might not be 100% correct. Or worse, it's downright dumb. Let's make another video. In this case, it was about how I wanted to make narrow strips with short-ish pieces of custom wood using the track saw system and the MFT top that I'm about to make. More on that. I like the approach that I am taking over and above some others that would be, you could say, better in a lot of other ways. But having an accurately constructed MFT style of top with the track saw system and one of the purchased items I've got means that I can cut narrow strips easily. Yeah, narrow strips easily up until the point that they are short. Now I've got a lot of offcuts from prior, parts of the projects, and it's rubbish basically, and I was about to throw them out and I thought, oh, hang on, they're actually not much different in size from the bits that I need for the drawers. Oh, let's make use of those, shall we? So I made the video saying what I was going to do, but in that process, as I mentioned, I heard my own voice saying this, and I came back inside and thought about those short pieces, and I thought, there's no way I can actually use them with the process that I was going to use. Anyway, in fact, what I'll do, rather than me waffle on all the time, I'll just pause the recording at the moment. And by the way, every single video you'll see me make is a unedited video. There is, you may be wishing that I did do a lot of editing, but no, it's a as it comes out of my mouth sort of thing. And sometimes, I have to delve off to get other things. But other than that, the pausing that is, they are unedited. So anyway, just wait there and I'll be right back. Okay, that didn't take long, did it? Well, I've opened up another screen and I'll just drag it in there. See if we can get it. Whoop, not like that. Oh my giddy aunt. Anyway, we'll get there. This one. This is the setup that I'm talking about. Nothing new in this, so, you don't have to comment. But this little gizmo here, well, there's actually two of those little locating bench dogs. Very nice bit of kit. Recommended by, not recommended, but reviewed by Dennis from Hooked on Wood. And I thought it particularly... It's still not enlarged properly. There we go. I thought it particularly good item to have. Yes, it is. It is good. Now let's just Perspective's on. I thought the perspective was off. Anyway, it is good when you want to slide a piece of sheet material that can rest up against the back guides. It then comes up and touches, and in fact I'll just move it so that it actually looks like it is doing the very thing I'm suggesting, like that. It will come up, or the sheet material will come up until it touches this stop here. That's what we want. The claim to fame for this is this surface is registered to the right hand side of the saw blade teeth, so you can get a 100% accurate alignment of this face. Now that's different for this reason. Most times when you cut your sheet goods like this using the track saw, it's this piece here that is the bit that you want. This piece is the offcut. Well, not in this scenario, Sonny Jim. This is the actual piece I want, and it can be as narrow can be, because it's still attached to the sheet here and resting and giving me the 90 degrees to the track saw via the fences at the back. This is just to gauge the distance that this projects out. However, that all changes if you're not using a sheet like this resting up against these back fences. You can't rely on putting a short-ish piece of material in against the stop here and it be in the correct place for cutting. It also means that it is wobbly and it could move under the cutting of the, with the saw, because it's not being held by the track, the rail itself. It is out in free, like just out in space sort of thing. So it would need to have a clamp onto it. Again, that's not a problem. So hearing all this sort of made the statement that how good this system was going to be, only to realise that in the actual application that I wanted, it was going to suck. So I thought to myself, and it didn't take much thinking, luckily, what if I have a parallel rule type of setup, the ones that you use in cartography, or not cartography, what is it? Anyway, in the nautical arena or on a drafting table. However, this is a Tim Allen type, excuse me, just about to cough, a Tim Allen, excuse me. Well, what an interruption. Anyway, this is a Tim Allen version. It's in this case, it's pieces of steel I've already got kind of out there in the garage already, but it's 40mm by 10mm thick. Already pre-drilled, as it turned out, because it was as it turned out to be a prototype rather than the actual item, but I've got it out in the workshop, and I thought, if I make use of that, I could then have two of them, bolt them together, and then they could separate by whatever amount these pieces will permit to give me the different spacings for my small, shortish pieces of custom wood in this case to rest up against, and that then becomes parallel to my track saw. Yay! You could have the holes flared out to the 20mm diameter, 19 if you use that weird measuring system, but 20mm, and bench dog it into place, preferably with a clamping bench dog. More on that at some stage in the future, but you could clamp it down to your bench and then move the arms in and out to get your correct measurement. Then I thought, what if, because this has a little bit of an impediment for just how big you have it, you'd have to have different angled connectors here. If I made in this case it is 50, made a bar that could then be placed against onto the MFT top and fixed in place with the clampable bench dogs. And then I could rest this up against that and then have at it. Because after all, this doesn't have to be fixed, this section here. This, in the scenario I'm just making up as I talk, but this one here would want to be fixed. This could be, the whole thing could be floating. It pushed up against the fixed one and adjusted according to the dimension I wanted. My short piece of custom wood put in there, clamped, and then my saw could have at it and cut multiple accurate, repeatable strips, and fast I can add as well, making it way more ergonomic than the other options. The other options won't permit, I say that hesitantly, the same sort of flexibility as this would. You will have seen, now this is off the top of my head, I haven't given it much thought, so take that with what I say with a grain of salt. You've seen the track saw system where they've got attachments out the ends which are parallel arms for doing effectively what I'm talking about now. Still not as good as this, I believe. Anyway, that's still not as good to do multiple narrow-ish strips, because even though it will be set up to kind of do so, it's quite cumbersome. This is static. Once it's set up, have at it. The saw is static, or the rail is static, nothing changes. Run the saw past over your piece of short-ish bit of custom wood, that rubbish that you'd normally throw out because it was such a pain in the butt to use, and you've got the components you need for the project at hand. Now, in the video that I made out in the workshop, I did make reference to, well, why don't you use your bench saw, David, and put the fine blade on it? Well, having done that in the past, it still doesn't give it as good a cut as the track saw blade, which is very fine. The smallness of the teeth on the small diameter blade means that it's far finer than the fine blade I've got for the bench saw. So there's that. And because they're small items and I can just pop them in here and it's no problem, and this system will still work when I want to make a larger piece of, or cut down a piece out of a larger sheet. This is already set up for it. Manhandling a decent sized bit of melamine across a bench saw when you don't have one of those real U-butte ones can be a bit problematic and just downright heavy. This, not so much of a problem, is it? Pop your little piece in, clamp it down, remember, because the track saw is not sitting on it properly, and cut it, unclamp, replace. Much, much easier, and makes use of all those little bits of scrap that you're about to throw out as rubbish. So there you have it. Well, you don't actually. You've got part of it, because one of the things was how to make this accurately adjustable. Now, we could simply have a toggle, what do you call them, a knob here, and cinch it down every time I adjust it. But wouldn't there be a better way of fine-tuning the two parallel bars? And I think there is. If you know the overall measurement, and in this case it is 80 millimeters, 2 times 40, or whatever size that you make, using gauge blocks or feeler gauges for the fine tuning, you could put it in between the two pieces, clamp them off, and you know that you've got the measurement. So if you've got a 10mm gauge block, put it in between there, and now it is 90 millimeters. And derivations and combinations of different thicknesses between the two bars. That's probably going to be my approach. However, one thought was, and it's a little bit more difficult than I initially thought, was I could drill out either because it's 10 mil, it's probably thick enough, I could probably drill a small hole here, maybe 4 or 5 millimeter in diameter, thread it, and then I could put a piece of rod or a bolt in here, and I could turn that, pushing this bar away, giving me infinitely variable measurements. Stick my tape or vernier calipers across here to give me the measurement, and I could turn the screw to push the other bar out. Seems to make sense, at least to begin with. I'd actually had a thought about having something in these holes, like a longer bench dog, and then I could thrust out, but then you'd have to have a block on here for it to thrust out against, and it would be moving backwards and forwards depending on how much separation you'd have. So where the holes line up here, they don't here, and they definitely don't here. So either or. Not impossible. Whatever you want to do, it will be achievable if you consider the difficulty of doing it. And having gauge pieces or blocks, well, kind of is a cheap way or an easy way of doing it. It's just having enough of those fine increments to achieve that. Or you just simply put your vernier calipers across there, move it until you got the measurement that you want, and then clamp them off. Seems reasonable as well. Any of those will work. I still like the wee threaded inserted rod there, though. That seems to me to be a little bit more elegant. The other thing is you could put springs on here to keep on retracting it back against that threaded rod. I'm just making it up as I go, remembering I don't edit these things. And that may well be something that you could consider as well. Who knows? Don't know. Work it out if for your own application. Now, did I mention these were steel? 10mm thick steel? If I didn't, it is. Why not make it out of a bit of stable wood? After all, it's a lot easier to machine and get right. But steel is a little bit more robust, and you can do things with steel that, while you can with wood, you don't quite get the same mechanical, the solidity. So, yeah, the word, where it's solid. And you quite often see people making workshop-based wooden versions of the real item. And while I've kind of done a little bit of that, they're never as good. The metal-to-metal interface is superior for good reason. And with limit. But does this need that sort of robustness, if you're using it in the application I'm suggesting? And the answer is probably not. So, yeah, get a bit of decking. I'm just thinking now again, off the top of my head, get a bit of decking hardwood, plane it up until it's nice and true, and put a couple of inserts in, maybe threaded inserts, or thread the hardwood, which does actually work really, really well. Bolt it down as you adjust it. Seems to make sense. Oh, by the way, how do you get those holes accurately? Yeah, well, there's a problem. For this case, it doesn't need to be absolutely perfect, not in my opinion. However, having gone to the extent of getting some this 50 by 10mm steel cut by laser, I've already got the holes necessary for that, and that's so I can make the 3-4-5 method of triangulations to make it square, and having the holes at 100mm. Yes, I know it's normally 96, but unless you're making cabinetry, you don't need the 32, 64, 96 spacings. It is specifically for cabinetry. You can use it for other things, but that spacing is from the cabinetry world, joinery world. So I've got the laser cutter company to make the holes at 100mm. So there you go. So having done that, I can use those bars. This one here I'm circling 50 by 50 mils wide. I can make up other bars out of wood maybe that can be drilled accurately for making this. I could. Or I can make use of the 40 mil pieces, which are garden stakes otherwise, because I bought them, the blanks, and you could use those using the laser cut strips. Hope you're following all this. Use the laser cut strips to then mark the blank pieces and drill accurately the spacings that you desire to have on it, because they don't need all of them. Maybe like I've done here, 10 mil or 20 mil diameter holes on one bar. Doesn't need that spacing on this bar, and 1 or 2 holes on the other bar. Seems reasonable. Rightio, that's it. 20 minutes or so. And did you follow all of that? Did you follow any of that? Well, that was part of why I also mentioned in the video out in the workshop that while the videos are made mainly for the tube, they are also made for me to make and listen to my own blatherings, and in that I can learn stuff myself and go forward. Just like when I was talking about how we do the adjustments here, I hadn't thought of that before. I was following a chain of thought and discussion while I was making this video. So it can be of benefit to some people. It will be absolutely a waste of time for others. It may only be interesting to me, but if I can be of service to the budding workshopper, I feel happy about that. Not everyone is at the same level of knowledge or tool making, and some of this is what I call the Heath Robinson approach to woodworking, where we make do with what we've got. And even having said that, me having to get these strips of steel laser cut really did not settle well with me. A, the cost, not insignificant, and B, the fact that I couldn't actually do it myself. Having spent a lot of time and purchasing of tools to try and accurately place these holes, I was a little bit annoyed with the outcome, I've got to say. The holes were like 1/4 mil, 1/2 mil out, which was enough to throw out my perceived requirement for accuracy to make the MFT style of top. Anyway, 23 minutes. I better end it. I'd better go out and finish drilling the holes in the steel, hadn't I? And so I can do all of these clever things. Rightio, that's it. I'll see you in the next one now. Okay, bye.